All right, welcome to another episode of our weekly Super Sherpas strategy show. We call it the game changer, and we're actually leveraging in these discussions AI. And I have my co-host today. It's Christine Dean, and she was with us last week. And so we're gonna kind of pick up on where we left off last week and kind of take it a little bit more in terms of strategies. Again, this isn't about how to as much as giving you ideas about how you might leverage warriornetworking.com, be connected, and AI to kind of take your networking uh, and make it intentional, put it on steroids, build that. So that's what we're all about today. And really I want to talk about, I want to start off today, Christine, and just, we mentioned, since the last time we got on, I actually subscribed using Magi, and we've had some conversations about playing with, I say playing, I mean, you can't break stuff. That's one of the things we talked about last week was we try things, we see how it works, we find out that we asked the wrong question, those kinds of things, right? But when you look at, and we talked about Magi, we've talked about my most trusted couple of other tools. One of the things that somebody reached out to me and says, "So, what are your favorite tools?" And I said, "Well, my perspective is very limited, and so, but let me ask Christy." So, before we kind of launch into kind of application, when you look at all the tools, and you've been on this journey a lot longer than me, Christine, um, what would you say are some of the top tools that you use when they come to mind? I mean, there's that, with Magi, there's such a long list. I was blown away by the various that said auto select, and it brought up something I never even heard of before. So anyway, so tell me, what do you think?
Well, so there's a lot of options when it comes to AI now. Part of that is schools of camp. Okay. One school of camp would be you want to have one favored AI that does everything you need in the AI space. The other idea is having specialized AI tools that do specific things and only those things. All right. They both have advantages and disadvantages. I know when I started my first AI program that I played with was kind of it gave you special things like this one works on headlines. This one works on rewriting a paragraph. It was very elemental, right? But the thing is you can only use it for those, right? That's
Mm.
all it does. So now you've outgrown it. You understand that you can use AI in more ways. You're wanting to use it for your business. Now you're like, now I'm limited because they only do these things. So we're seeing where people are shifting um, away from the, very specific ones into ones more like Magi, where you have multiples to choose from, where you can dive into different models, or something where this solves all my problems, all my AI needs. For
Yeah.
example, specialized ones. For example, I have ones that specifically will make slides for me very quickly. Right.
Mm.
And for me, since I do a lot of teaching and presentations, it's really nice to have a tool that specifically makes slides. All right. So something that actually creates. So if you want to create a slide, Magi doesn't do that. It doesn't have anything in there that's capable of doing that. I can copy information and then paste it on slides, but it doesn't actually create the slides. So there's times with your business that you may want an AI that's very specific for a certain skill set that you want. And that's great to hold on to those, right? When making slides, I use PopAI, but there's also I think it's Beautiful AI. There's a whole bunch of them that are really good. Um, so finding one that you like that works in the style that you like. If you do a lot of presentations, it makes sense to have a very specialized one. If you're looking for something that kind of does everything but may not create for you, right? But it gives you the content so you can slide it onto something else. That's where the Magi comes into hand, right? Um, I really like that because you can change models as you go and based on your needs, right? Yeah, I can create the social media post, turn around and have it create the image for me. And I can do that all in Magi. So it just makes it really smooth. If you want to create a business plan, a meeting I just was helping run yesterday was we were using it to create marketing plans because I asked everybody in the room, at a room of small business owners, and I said, how many of you have an actual marketing strategy plan for your business? And about half of them raised their hands. I said, okay, let's talk a little bit about that and how we can do that easily using an AI. Because a lot of times, as business owners, and I know I talk a lot about marketing because that's a lot of my background, right?
That's fun. That's why one of the reasons why you're here is because that's not my focus, although we all need good marketing strategy.
We do, and so AI gives you an opportunity to create strategy where before sometimes we'll just like, "Oh, what am I gonna post today? I don't know, this." Right? There's no strategy. It's kinda like a last minute, "Oh, I gotta put something up," right? If you're not planning it, right, it kinda just all kinda piecemeal together. It doesn't have an overall theme. You don't necessarily checking to see whether or not it's consistent with your brand. Are you posting just a post? Are you posting with a goal in mind? Right? Are you launching something specific? Are you hitting all the services, all the products that you have? Right? Are you hitting the values that are important to your company, the themes? Right? So, really, it lets you stop, take a moment, plan your overall strategy. What does that look like? What are your goals in your business? And how to use marketing to meet those goals? And you should really have once you've got the overall strategy, you really want to have something specific for each product, each service,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
It just makes sense to dive in. Once you start thinking overall, you're like, oh, then you can dive in more in depth, right? So if your overall marketing strategy says collaboration, with these organizations. Well, now you've got that on and you're like, oh, that was a great idea. Thank you, AI, for coming up with that idea. Who should I be collaborating with? Ask it, right? It might be able to tell you once it knows your business, right? And it's going to give you suggestions. And then from there, right? Great. I need to collaborate with other networking groups. Fantastic. Let me do a search and find out all the networking groups, contact information that you can find using a deep research model, right, for DFW. And that's what we were looking at for Warrior Networking. And that's right up my alley as the networking diva, right? So that's a resource that we could create and use together.
Well, and the thing that again, yeah, you basically hit on all the that kind of key points that I could think of, but again, my depth is pretty shallow right now when it comes to understanding of AI. However, one of the things that I've experienced just in the last week since the last show, and this is what I would encourage people watching the show and replay or listening to us, is get on the path, get on the journey. One of the things I said to a client this few days ago, and I used AI, by the way, it was amazing because um, I went into the conversation as, and Christine, you can relate to this. Anybody that's doing networking. So you meet somebody and they come to you either in a in-person networking situation or maybe a mixer. You get to know them. You got there at what you would call the top of the funnel, right? Using marketing. And I met her and then we got to talking. She moved from a mixer to an in-person networking group, then went into an online mastermind. And in that mastermind, we had identified, had a conversation. She got some input and basically got some ideas. And I said, okay, follow up with me and we'll have a 30-minute kind of discovery call where I can really understand what you're doing and maybe craft a game plan for the next 30 days or your business because I don't really understand your business, right? So we went through that. And this was all very what people would normally think, right? What you would normally do if you're networking. However, I used the Be Connected virtual meeting platform. When I was meeting with her after the first one-to-one, we took the information came out of there and her connections and created for warriornetworking.com bio profile. Better than anything, in my opinion, of course, and probably, better than anything that she had on her website or any of the other social posts, because it brings it all together. We talked about that over the last couple of weeks, is where you can get information from LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever, plus add to it the real-time conversation and or where they're at right now, and put that all together. But the thing is, doing that without some help, in the old world, with a whole staff of people, feed this, give them all my notes and say, go create this. Now I can just do it with AI. And so I did. Then after the mastermind, fast forward, we had this one-to-one for 30 minutes, and we only had 30 minutes. And we took the information. I took that information, the transcript, out of that and said, organize this for me. Because so many times in what I do, I'm making notes. And if you looked at my notes, you couldn't make anything out of them, but they mean something to me and I can kind of see things. But here I got it on a piece of paper. I mean, I took that and put it in AI, Magi. I don't know I can't remember which. I had it auto select which one it did, but it created this very cool summary of what we talked about, what the to-dos, action items, those kinds of things, and gave us, and I basically sent it to her and said, okay, now schedule the next one-to-one and we'll pick up where we left off. Kind of what we're doing with the show too, by the way. I take the input from the show. We're now taking that and using, as I mentioned, these episodes are also in audio form, and then taking it, summarizing what we talked about. And I'm using AI to help me do that more quickly so that the content that we're putting out, people kind of know more of what they're getting into without that huge investment of time that normally I would make to really get my head around what we talked about. So, I think that's brilliant. But then if I wanted to, back to you, Christine. So if I wanted to take that and say, okay, I'm going to put a presentation together, a PowerPoint deck or whatever, then I maybe plug that into another tool. I mean, the tool that I use for cleaning up the audio is an AI. It's Adobe, I don't know, Enhance or whatever product that I started using early on when I was beginning the Warrior versus Zombie podcast, to make it sound better, not like I was doing it. Even this podcast or even this show, the audio I'll process it through that. So go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, I think there's so many opportunities like what you just talked about. We've got, Otter AI and other programs that are intended to create transcripts, create summaries. It'll actually give you action items, right? So if you just start running that on your meetings now, you're going to find that it makes it very clear and easy to summarize and find those action items that you were looking for. And you're like, what were we going to do by the end of the meeting? If you have an hour meeting, an hour and a half meeting, by the end, you're like, oh man, we talked about a lot. What were the most important key elements? And running that through the AI or having your note taker coming in as an AI, right? It really makes a difference. And then creating that, one of the things you had mentioned that you didn't actually mention yet on this show, but that I really liked was taking that person's profile on Be Connected and saying, okay, taking this person's profile into consideration and taking my brand and who I am and the services that I offer, how could I offer the most value to this person?
Mm-mm. Yeah.
What if you did that before you went into a meeting and it was a networking meeting or it was a first time meeting with a prospective client, or right? How cool would it be to take that and do that ahead of time and see this is the areas that I add value. Let me do a little bit of research and see are they having any problems in any of these areas? What do I want to hone in on that I could really add the most value to them? Wow. Talk about a game changer going in where you're having a conversation with somebody and they tell you, okay, well, I'm thinking that these are the areas I can help you with, based on knowing you and your business. Am I getting this right? And them going, yes, you just identified all my problems. How wonderful was that? Right? I what an interesting conversation to just start with, right?
Yeah, and the thing that's essentially, for the back to the flow just with Econom, my the client is that the next one I said, okay, here's what we talked about, here's what we came away with. I don't have her, I gave her an assignment that I'll have, but when I we get into it, I'll say, okay, looking at, let's say, her warriornetworking.com or her overall profile now, comparing it to this conversation, what did we miss? What things did we not talk about that may be latent? Because when we're having this conversation, the hardest thing is which things are we going to talk about? Because there's way too many things, right, to talk about in 30 minutes. So if you're having a one-to-one or discovery call with somebody, you can do that and then say, okay, this is how far we got on this journey or this basically this building a relationship of trust. Now, where do I go from here? Like you said, that would be the most valuable. What kinds of things? And I've only got, you can actually, the thing that I love is just like for the show, I tell the AI, I've got 30 minutes and it'll come back and say, well, you can talk about this, this, this. Here's, if you did this, we took 8 minutes for this and 7 minutes for the, all of a sudden I've got, now I never do it the way that AI says, but at least it gives me some structure. And you're more structured than me, Christine. So I know your brain kind of processes a little bit, but you're creative too, right? So I like to be in the moment, in the creative flow, and serving the person where they're at that moment in any conversation. So it's not a automation, it's a conversation and a relationship, right?
And I'm going to see that's the difference between a conversation and a business meeting. A lot of times, a business meeting, you come with a very clear cut agenda, Robert's Rule of Orders. I mean, sorry, it's not on the list. You're going to have to submit that for next time, right? I mean, whereas a conversation and we're doing the getting to know you part of it, right? You need it to be more of conversation, a real, get to know you. And you can't do that if you're following a very strict regime kind of rule list, right?
Yeah.
So I can see where you say you've kind of got guidelines, things that might be good to bring up and talk about, but they're kind of loose and fluffy, right?
Yeah. And like you say, it's loose and fluffy and you kind of know, and that's kind of the way I start and my brain works. But this gives me kind of like a roadmap.
Mhm.
And I might decide, I want to explore this, and I didn't really think of that at the beginning. It's okay. Next time I say, hey, we started out to talk about this, and we didn't get to these. So which ones are left? And
And what you miss a lot of times, if you come in with too much of an agenda when you're getting to know someone, sometimes you miss opportunities because you've kind of like, this is what I'm looking at. Here's my tunnel vision. And you may not realize, right? The other things that come up, the things that we've bonded over that you have in common, right? When I'm talking to someone and they say, oh, yeah, and they mentioned, oh, my child's autistic, and my grandson's autistic, right? We've got instant bonding right there, right? We understand. And so there's things like that that come up in a natural, real conversation that you're not going to get if you're following that meeting style of agenda. So leave some room for the real life to sneak in.
well, and one of the things that occurs to me, and I probably you've already realized this with your own AI use, is that when you have those real conversations in a CRM, I don't care whether you're using Salesforce or Go High Level or Be Connected CRM or whatever you're using, right? There's an opportunity for you to put information in there that reminds you where you were with your last conversation and what went through. How cool is it to think about, okay, I can take that conversation, I've got the transcription, I get the high points out of that, I put it in my CRM, and the next time I call you or you reach out to me, I can pop that up and say, okay, here's the summary. It's not relying necessarily. I mean, my own recollection isn't too bad so far. But I'm just saying, having that automated and documented seems like that would be a pretty powerful tool, right?
Well, and I often talk about the difference between being a solopreneur and scaling, right? Is getting it out of your head. If you're relying on your own memory, sometimes you've talked to so many people, you've interacted, you've solved so many problems. A lot has happened, right? Even if it's 24 hours later that I'm talking to you, I've probably talked to 10, 15 different people since then, right? So, what we can do to help keep clarity, your CRM is a great place. You can have the summary, the key points right there, and then the full transcript underneath that if you want, or the link to the full transcript, but getting it organized in there. But also, what that does is by bringing it out of your head and into your CRM, now that leaves room for you to have an assistant or someone else specifically to come in and do the follow up on that.
Yeah. So then you can really scale it. You know, there's some actually, again, some brilliance here because a lot of people that are listening to this and thinking about this, whether they're on Be Connected or in our Warrior Networking community or whatever, they are what I would call serial networkers. We're always out there meeting new people. And that's one of the challenges that I encounter on a regular basis. People will say, there's somebody in this meeting that I heard that does this, and I can't remember who that was,
Mm.
right? There was some value delivered there, but I can't connect those dots. And can you help me? And I end up doing a lot of that. But if you had these tools and you took your notes and you put it in, um, and you know, you can transfer, and people hear the audio transcription, there's ways, even if you aren't the owner of this content, there are ways to take this replay and put it into your own AI, whether you use Otter AI, whether you use, upload it to YouTube and get a whatever you do. There's ways to do it, probably some more efficient than others, right? But you can come away with that and say, okay, here's the things. And oh yeah, the AI didn't pick up this. I really like this. You can even tell AI to add it back in, expand on that one because I'm really interested, right?
It's fascinating on how you can take the notes and tell it what you want to do with the content, right? So you can have its original notes. You can say, now can you take this information and turn it into a guide, a how-to guide? Now can you take this information and just take the action items out of it? Okay, and now I'm going to drop those and send them to my assistant, right? You can really manipulate the information once you've got it in writing to get AI to do things you want with it. It's absolutely amazing. Imagine if you had a conversation and it created the to-do list, and then you could assign that to-do list to different people in your organization. Okay, I've got so and so, they're going to handle this person's going to handle that, or you pass it all off to your project manager who makes sure everything happens, right? There's so much once you can get it out, right? Old school was I went to the meeting and maybe I took some notes. It may or may not have ended up in my CRM. But if you turn to someone else and say, hey, can you help me with this? They'd be like, with what? I don't have anything. I have 3 words on a piece of paper. What am I supposed to do with this? Right. Now you can
Now
actually
you're looking at my notes. That's what I say. I've got notes and they're triggers are like, because I have what would be termed as a semi-audiographic. I don't think I remember every word and every but I have this autograph. So I put little, like, they're like markers on the tape to say this. Okay, now trigger that. But if I had this summary, just think of and again, this is a lot of it's for me. Different, that the beauty of AI is the strategy is to help you, and you are unique, right? I am unique. So I'm taking what I could use as help and bringing it to me, and then taking that and up leveling my ability to scale, my ability to have more impact, because that's why we do networking.
will scale and bring other people into teamwork. Let's say you needed to run a meeting and you had 3 topics you're going to talk about. I'm going to give, for example, when I was teaching college, I literally could go in and teach a 3-hour class with a Post-it note that had 3 words on it. Why? Because I know my content.
Sure.
Let's say I got sick and I couldn't teach it and I needed something really quick. If I handed those 3 words off to another teacher and said, you know what, good luck teaching 3 hours on these 3 words, but bye now, right? But AI at the time, right? If I had access to AI, I'd be like, here it is. These are the concepts that I want covered, right? And I were to just say that out, give it to it and say, elaborate and create an outline. I could hand that to them. They could walk into the room if they had the same background and they go, oh, this is where she wants to go with this. And they could follow that and be able to teach that class for me. I mean, the opportunities to be able to scale and take what's inside your head and give it to someone else so they can continue is pretty amazing when it comes to AI.
Well, this is actually probably one of the most valuable episodes from my perspective that we've done, because while we were sitting here talking, it just revealed to me a solution for my client who's been in business for 30 years, and his business is him, and therefore it's all in his head. He's not new. He knows what he knows. And he has a team, small boutique team of people, creatives that help him, but really it's still him. With AI, with what we just described, some of what I'd exercised in the last week, I can see where you could invite me to these discussions where you're actually putting together a deliverable for a client, and we can capture the founder's view of that, automate that, document it, have a manual, have this is what the IP, the intellectual property of this agency is. We can go and it's not that hard.
It
That's the
takes
crazy thing. It's not, it once you kind of know and you really have an objective, that's the thing that's blowing my mind on all of this stuff is
it makes
the
it
possibilities are limitless, right?
absolutely the possibilities. And what you're talking about, I've actually worked with a solopreneur and we talked and created the business plan based on his model. And we went through and we had him share and had it summarized and create a whole business plan, exactly pulling it out of his head because he knows what he wants, but you can't scale it till you can get it out of your head. And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
So put those SOPs, put the training materials in place, had him talk about his training materials, what he does, how he normally does it, and then took that to create those training pieces,
Yeah.
right? You can get it. This makes it so that the solopreneur or the small business can get it out into paper so that you can now share it with other people.
And the thing I love about it is the fact that it's still unique to you. I mean, some people I've had, I was talking to somebody and they want to write a book, and I won't mention names because they might listen to this or whatever, but they want to write a book. And I said, okay, what do you want to write a book? And they said, well, and I said, well, why don't you use AI to kind of explore the topic, do some deep research, learn, and get a draft, get some outline, and then you can edit it, and then you put the content in, you add your voice, and you can actually even train AI as you're writing a book or you're creating this course or you're creating a business plan, whatever it might be, right? It's still you. The most important thing is you don't give it to somebody else to do your homework. You're still doing it. But that's the thing that really has struck me.
You want to talk about writing books? We can do a whole episode on that. Just the process. And there's actually AIs that specifically work for that. You were asking for recommendations. So I do have a recommendation for the AI for that also, but you can use Magi.
The
Absolutely.
recommendation be? Don't tease.
the teaser. Oh, I should actually tell you. Okay. Genius, the Genius Club with the Great Discovery has trails put together specifically for writing books. It's pretty amazing. So, in the best part, like you said, is brainstorming on the concept. You can actually ask it to look at your website and say, what would be some recommended books that you would suggest that I write in order to um, represent my business, what would draw in my ideal client, right? Those kind of things. So we could do a whole episode just on using books as a way to draw people to you.
Well, we definitely are going to do that. So, well,
Well, that'll be a fun conversation, but I don't think we
right.
need to
We're not
drop
doing
it
it
in
today.
today.
But I'm writing it down for another episode, and we will give a couple weeks runway on that so that we can get other, because I think there might be some people they'll hear this episode, either audio or whatever, and say, "Hey, I'd like to be around when they discuss this." Because, and so the Genius Club, Great Discovery, those are things. And by the way, again, we're getting ready to land the plane here. So, if you're watching this on the Be Connected platform in our Warrior Networking group channel, you can find you'll see that on the recording, there's a place where you can still click to schedule a one-to-one. There's a place to get to your Warrior Networking directory. And if if you want to see what the group is, go to the global toolkit, the global community. So you can do those things even when we're in replay. So this isn't like you missed out. So you can do those things. And if you have ideas, if you go into the show and you want to then say, "Hey, I'd like to see you do this or that," we'd love to do. We're here to serve. We want to talk about, we're Sherpas. We don't have all the answers, but we're learning things along the road. So, but thank you, Christine. I think that this has been fun. I didn't get halfway through my agenda here, but that's okay because we've got plenty of time. We'll be back next week on Friday, and we'll be picking up on this discussion and talking again about strategies for applying Be Connected, warriornetworking.com, and AI. And AI is a broad group of things. Used to be, it was everybody says that was ChatGPT. Well, large language models are still a thing, but as Christine pointed out earlier, there's tools for graphics, there's tools for videos, there's tools from writing a book that AI can help us do some things, but it's helping us. We're not giving
Absolutely.
over to AI.
And I've recently launched a training what we do on Thursdays on AI specifically. And every week we're doing training. So if that's something that people want to know more about, reach out and let me know.
Well, and there's just the two final last things is come to the next show. The other thing is we are if you're in the Dallas Fort Worth area, we're going after, and Christine has talked, we kind of talked about it a little bit in just kind of what we've been working on, but we're going to be reaching out to all of the in-person networking groups for a mixer that we have on the 23rd of June. The other thing Christine and I are talking about, and I know it's on her agenda as well, is the Networking Leaders Summit that we've kicked off a couple weeks ago when we were with Nathan here, and we were kind of saying, "Hey, this is a great idea. Let's come up with a summit. Let's bring in these experts." And so we're still thinking about that. So if you have any passion about that or any ideas, or you're a leader of any networking group, we're not competing. We want to make sure that the people that choose to network in our communities, whether it's the DFW networking community, Divas with Christine's community, or any of the ones, she's got multiple communities, or if you're in Warrior Networking or Richardson Plano or any particular, whatever it happens to be, right? We want you to get the maximum return on investment for investing your most valuable asset, which isn't the dollars, it's your time.
And I'm going to make an ask. I'm going to say, introduce me to any networking leaders that you know, a leader of an organization, it's a networking group that you attend, whether it's in person or online. I would love to meet them. So feel free to drop me a line, diva at thenetworkingdiva.com. And I would love to talk to you. I would love to talk to them, and let's see how we can collaborate.
Yeah, I love that ask. And again, I'm willing to be in those conversations as well because again, Christine and I are very aligned. And I think we want to attract other people who are aligned in the same way, which is basically we show up to serve, not show up to sell. Selling is a beautiful thing. I'm not dissing that. But anyway, we got to go, and we could keep going for a little bit, but I think we're done with our 30 minutes. So Christine, thanks again. We'll be back next week, same time. Actually, we'll be back at the actual real time at 10:30. All right.
And we'll see you then.
All right. You guys have a beautiful day.
Bye.